Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Dynamic CIO Talk Show, in which we get senior industry leaders from both business and technology sides to talk about some of the very contemporary issues, opportunities, trends, and also challenges that industry is grappling with. Before I introduce my guest for today's talk show, I would like to give you a small background, a small context of our conversation. So the June 2020 World Bank Global Economic Outlook predicted that 90% of all the countries globally will go into recession in the coming months. Now we have already crossed a year, and there are symptoms of recession everywhere in pockets around the world. The Indian economy, which was already facing headwinds before the onset of COVID-19, staring at some form of recession. This is going to be the fourth recession since the independence of India. The reasons this time are quite different from the earlier ones, though. The tough question our policymakers and industry leaders are facing with is how do we get back on the recovery path? There may be a silver lining, however, it is very vaguely visible as of now. There are already a few green shoots like power demand and manufacturing activity picking up, which are good symptoms for us. With private investment, consumption-led demand, and exports still looking slightly okay and not so great, the thrust to revive growth would have to come from expenditure in the right areas, in the right sectors. Building future-ready, intelligent, resilient, and sustainable infrastructure could help restart capital goods production, provide employment, and revive private sector confidence. While there may have been underlying challenges earlier, neither is our human capital, natural resources, nor existing industry been physically dented in the last 3 to 4 months. It is true that India has to achieve if India has to achieve its goal of becoming a $5 trillion economy, it needs to rest on having some fundamentals right, including the completion of critical infrastructure, which is greatly envisioned, and also it has to give a great boost to the digital infrastructure. On the other hand, to discuss this and more, I have the pleasure of having with me Prasad Rai. Prasad is the Vice President, Global Strategic Clients Group at Oracle India. Welcome to the show, Prasad. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Rahul, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And
Absolutely.
great to hear the preamble setting the stage.
Absolutely. Pleasure to have you on the show as well. I'm sure we will have a very fruitful discussion from here on. So to just kickstart my set of questions to you, before we dive into the interesting conversation, tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, your role, your background.
Sure, Rahul. So as you said earlier on, I'm the Vice President for the Strategic Clients Group at Oracle in India. And prior to that at Oracle, I started and ran and significantly grew the software as a service and applications business, right? I've worked in other global multinationals. And in my earlier stint at Oracle, I was running an Asia-Pacific business based out of Singapore. I love sports, both playing and watching. And now we have enough on TV now to watch. And thankfully, we can still play some games. And I love traveling, both in India and across the world. Unfortunately, that is hampered a bit thanks to the pandemic. I'm sure we'll get an opportunity to start doing that. I'm based out of Gurgaon, Rahul, and lovely to be here once again.
Absolutely. So, Prasad, it is widely held view that every crisis brings or presents an opportunity, an equally vital opportunity. So how would you assess the situation that exists today, which is the result of some really crude happenings over the past 15, 16 months? What would it take for India to bounce back, not just from a tech enablement point of view, but also from other, from other component perspective?
The pandemic, Rahul, has really disrupted the economy, the livelihood of people, pretty much everything that we do. Obviously, not just in India, but across the globe. The challenges that the population faced were enormous and were one, not just of a lifetime, of many lifetimes, right? And we've heard the stories, we've read about it, we've seen it on TV, we've personally experienced many of these things. So I won't really talk about the pandemic all that much, but rather about what's happened because of the pandemic. Very recently, as in even this week, there was a revision in India's GDP down to 9.5% by the IMF, right? So we are seeing the impact of the two waves in India. We are seeing the impact of the lockdown, and it is pervasive across industries, across size of companies, across geographies, right? And I think my reading, based on many conversations that I've had with executives across all kinds of companies across the country, and of course, many people that observe the markets, everything else. What I see is initially, I think the shock and the surprise of something like a lockdown happening stopped everyone from really moving forward. But the great news is that despite these enormous challenges, everyone went forward, found a way through to be able to continue to run their businesses, despite reduced revenues, despite reduced market opportunities, and all of that. And along the way, what I saw was across industries, people found ways and means to be able to really turn things around and start prospering in very, very difficult times. Some industries were very badly hit, primarily because if you can't step out of your house or your complex, that business doesn't happen. Travel, hospitality. Some industries, I'm just giving you a couple of industries, those were hugely impacted because there was really no way. But they learned, I think it gave them an opportunity to look deeply into themselves and also decide how to position themselves when the pandemic recedes and business starts coming back to normal. What we read and what we see is that it looks like it'll be at least a couple more years before we come back to pre-pandemic levels of economic activity or growth. And what I see is that there will be some industries that will lead the way out of the current situation. They would typically be e-commerce and retail, right? E-commerce prospered during the pandemic. Manufacturing, I think, will really start leading the way. Banking and financial services, definitely pharmaceuticals and healthcare, right? That's been in the forefront. These are some of the industries, along with IT and IT-enabled services, I think will lead the way out of the pandemic in terms of providing growth, providing newer opportunities, employment, and really taking the other industries across. The thing that we've seen is very rapid adoption of technology, right? Happy to go into that in detail, but I just thought I would really give you a broad overview of what I see in the last 14, 15 months.
Absolutely. You touched upon a very vital aspect, that if the economy has to get back on its feet and grow at the pre-pandemic growth numbers, which were like 7 to 9%, in the bracket of 7 to 9%, it needs to be digitally powered and enabled, and critical sectors such as healthcare, pharmaceutical, the entire banking and financial sector, the emerging e-commerce and retail sector, and of course, the backbone of economy, the manufacturing sector, have to be at the forefront of adopting, have to be at the forefront first, and need to be working on adopting new technologies, working on new technologies. So what would they have to do? What would these critical sectors have to do in terms of upgrading their technology infrastructure, working on the technology transformation, so that they can perform at an optimal level, and give a required push to the economic growth?
I think what really drives technology adoption and the benefits is clarity on the business outcomes that they want to achieve. That is one very important component. The other very important component is the ability or the practice of trying out new technologies. Over the last few years, there's been a rapid proliferation of new technologies. We have IoT, we have artificial intelligence, we have cloud technologies, we have digital technologies. And, a mix of clarity on business outcomes that they want to arrive at, and the culture or the ability to try out newer technologies to drive the business outcomes is, I think, the primary mover, right? And I see that happening across the place, because what we've seen in the last 1.5 years is the rate of digital and cloud technology adoption much, much faster than ever before. In fact, I would say we've probably achieved what would have been achieved in the normal circumstances in 5 to 7 years in a matter of 1.5 years, right? I've seen companies that one day are still with traditional technology, and a week later, they are completely changed, and they want to see how they can adopt the latest technologies to deliver the business benefits and the growth that they want to do. Primarily because obviously it was the pandemic, everyone had to work from home. Companies were not able to meet as they usually did their suppliers, their manufacturers, their partners, nor were they able to go out and meet their customers or their distributors, right? But they had to put in place technologies that help them work in a very remote manner. They also see that because of the proliferation of devices such as mobile, IoT, and large-scale adoption of the internet, they realize that there are new ways by which they can actually run their businesses much more efficiently and service, sell, and retain their customers remotely, right? And that is what many of them have realized much faster during the pandemic than they did earlier. The other part is also that the technologies themselves have actually become much more robust, much more scalable to meet the demands of large, complex, and fast-growing organizations that service not hundreds or thousands, but millions of customers. So these confluence of events, one, the pandemic, two, the business challenges and the opportunities, three, the maturation of the technology, and of course, the availability of digital technologies has just very rapidly accelerated the adoption. And, senior management themselves have now started making sure that digital transformation, adoption of cloud technologies is a top priority for them. And the good thing is many of them are tech savvy, right? Savvy enough to be able to know how technology can help their business. And this whole, set of things has actually started driving much more rapid technology involvement in business. And we've seen that happen literally face to face. I mean, all the times.
No, absolutely right. And, just to add to what you said, I think even even prior to pandemic, there were disruptors in the industry which were placed all around, and those disruptors were forcing the legacy organizations to come up to speed, but that was not as pressing a time as pandemic gave to all of us, because at that time when everything came to a halt and everything had to be remotely digitally managed, I think that was a blessing in disguise to bring everybody to speed and force everyone to become a digital native rather than becoming a burden on themselves. So that's
Absolutely.
a plus point that this whole incident has given to all of us. Moving on, when we talk in the realm of, especially in the realm of manufacturing and other sectors, Industry 4.0 has been in talks for quite some time, and it really holds a great promise for the economy and society. Technological breakthroughs, including advanced robotics, artificial intelligence, big data analytics, AR, VR, IoT, are all seen as a set of change, the way we work and live, and they will all impact that change. Whether it is about smart products, smart manufacturing, smart supply chains, everything will ultimately result into efficiency and productivity. So how will these factors impact the industries, and how can industries leverage this concept of Industry 4.0?
Absolutely, Rahul. This Industry 4.0 is really the fourth industrial revolution that is happening now right in front of us. Just to give a context to Industry 4.0, we can define what was Industry 1.0. That was really about mechanization, right? About how people used water power and steam power to drive mechanization of industries. Industry 2.0 was really about mass production, assembly lines, electricity coming into the picture. Industry 3.0 was really about computer and automation. But the one that is happening right now, which is Industry 4.0, is really about cyber physical systems. In short, what it really stands for is a digital transformation of the entire value chain. And it is across industries, right? And what it really does is it targets the digitization of both the value chains that exist in industries, both the horizontal value chain and the vertical value chain. By horizontal value chain, what I'm referring to is the way that the company connects with its suppliers and its partners on one side. And on the other side, how it connects with its customers and its distributors of its products or services, mostly products. So it is about actually digitizing the entire value chain of an industry. And it is not just an industry, it is across industry, right? Whether it's car manufacturing, it's electrical, you have every industry that is now adopting 4.0. And the technologies that you talk about, AR, VR, IoT, blockchain, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, all of these, 5G is going to be a huge fillip to, Industry 4.0. But in the end, it delivers a very huge change to the way manufacturing companies are able to leverage technology. Just to give you a simple example, if there is a product, a unit that is being manufactured by a company, in the product development cycle, they need to create many different components of many different versions of that as they try and make sure that the product will function in varying environments to the specification that it's supposed to. Previously, it used to be physical manufacturing of those items. Now you can have a digital twin that has all the characteristics and specifications of that unit or that item, and you can subject it to various different conditions, all on your computer, right? And then get the best version and straight away take it down to manufacturing. Absolutely. So the digital twins part is really revolutionizing the speed and quality of products that you get to market. It's a huge benefit. I'm just giving you a simple example of what, Industry 4.0 is getting to. So for companies, and the good thing is in India, across industries, many of these companies are adopting it. Like I said, not just across the horizontal value chain, but across the vertical value chain, which is across the various functions of a company, whether it's for product marketing, sales, planning, production, manufacturing, supply chain, all of that is brought together. And you use technologies, and like I said earlier, I'm very excited about the fact that, down the line, we will have 5G. And that will again help, all the manufacturing companies to be able to leverage that at a very, very different level. So it is getting adopted, and it is getting adopted very rapidly. And we will only continue to see that helping us get better products, better service, and improving the bottom line and the top line for manufacturing companies. It's a boon to the industry.
Briefly, if I may touch upon a question and ask you about, the digital maturity. You talked about digital twins. I mean, that's quite a matured way of thinking by industries if they can adopt it. However, there are various kinds of industry, and they are at various stages of their digital transformation journey. From an ad hoc approach, digitizing a few functions, front-ending functions, to a very comprehensive approach, which entails the entire 9 yards of digital transformation. We have got organizations at different stages. So how do these organizations, how should these organizations approach this whole concept of transformation, and what does it take?
Yeah, like you said, different industries at different levels of maturity and evolution in adopting, adopting digital technologies and going through the transformation. I think the pandemic has helped people understand the benefits of that much faster than they would have otherwise or organically. If you look at one end of the spectrum, if you look at, e-commerce companies or IT-enabled companies, their adoption of digital technologies, their adoption of, cloud services is much more rapid. So many of them are born in the cloud. They do not think of having infrastructure in their offices. They would rather rent from companies like Oracle and start running their systems, right? And they're able to get access to the latest and the greatest on a subscription basis. It doesn't really matter how big or how well-funded they are, right? And they understand that. I mean, companies like Flipkart, they've already deployed some of our technologies on the cloud because it makes so much more sense for them, right? They're one of the largest, e-commerce companies in the country. And parallelly, IT and IT-enabled companies, because they talk about this, they see it, they create it, their adoption is also fairly rapid. I think the mid-sector, where they are really moving in to digital transformation, is, the financial services, maybe the healthcare and the pharmaceutical industries, right? And also manufacturing and retail, right? Because they typically end up servicing a very large number of customers, and they have to find newer ways by which they're able to give the customer the best possible experience and at scale. Second, they have complex internal systems, and they realize that, the startups and the disruptors could end up eating their lunch down the line. Two, there is regulations, there is competition. All of this now drives these companies to be much more agile, right? Much more responsive to the customer and much more efficient in the way they run their organizations, and also be, able to take care of their employees, because more and more millennials are walking into these companies, these reputed companies. So they have now started in sometimes in bits and pieces, sometimes in bigger measures, the move to the cloud or digital transformation. My suggestion to them really is that they have tasted the benefits, right, of cloud or digital. They've seen that it meets the requirements of large, complex companies. And therefore, the suggestion is that they go ahead and start adopting it at a much higher scale or a faster scale, because they will then be able to reap the benefits of leveraging the latest technologies. And frankly, people may say, hey, this is new, but look at Oracle has for, decades, more than 40 years, supporting some of the largest companies in the world and in India. And we understand what scale is. We understand what security is. We understand very robust systems that continue to run, whether there is a pandemic, whether there is a disruption, whether there is anything else, right? So they see that companies like Oracle are bringing these digital technologies. And they know with the lineage that we have, we will be able to provide the same level of security, availability, and scalability, but in the digital and the cloud world, right? There is that recognition. So it is all about how they start adopting it faster in areas that make sense. But like I said earlier, the most important thing for companies across the spectrum to consider is really about what are the business outcomes or the business benefits that they want to get. And then they work backwards to look at technology to be able to help support them, which is why companies like Oracle, we hire people from various industries that have an experience in, say, banking or in manufacturing or in telecom, so that we're able to do that. And on the other side, there could be, companies like process manufacturing, right? Some particular, infrastructure and construction, where there is definitely benefits. There is definitely a move towards the digital and the cloud services, but there is scope for much faster inclusion over there. And for them, because of the kind of industries that they are in, they will be very keen to see how they can adopt it, right, over a period of time. And they need to really work with companies that are providing these services to help leverage that, experience that, try that out in specific areas and say, hey, this is a success. Now, why don't I roll it out across my organization to get the benefits I want? So really splitting it into three buckets: leading adopters, people that have embarked on that journey and really picking up speed, and others who tried it out, and now is the time for them to really start adopting it at scale.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a fantastic explanation, and putting them in three buckets is how things look at currently. One of my last questions to you in this interaction is that, industry is, as you said, and as you underlined multiple times, that industry is acknowledging a shift to more cloud-based infrastructure, more cloud-based business activities, be it the CEO or the CMO or the CFO of the organization. Any business head is convinced with the flexibility, agility, cost optimization that cloud actually provides across all domains of be it applications, be it infrastructure, be it platform. So, and literally, when it comes to India, most large cloud companies, cloud providers. There's a literal war that is taking place that we see as analysts and as observers. So, in that realm, what would you say, and how would you comprehend Oracle's roadmap for expanding both horizontally and vertically, and how would Oracle like to cloud enable their customers and the larger part of industry?
So I think what Oracle brings, the legacy that Oracle brings to the table, is that we've worked with companies of various sizes in all industries across the world for the last 40 years, right? Our legacy, original legacy, was building very secure systems for security organizations in the US. And we evolved from there, and we have a comprehensive scope of solutions over there. Our journey on the cloud has been, fairly rapid. And if you look at the results that were there, that were announced in June, global results, was that some of our businesses, particularly the Fusion ERP business, grew about 40+% year over year. Our IaaS and PaaS business grew 3 digits, and that is all globally, right? And we also had fairly strong growth in India across these lines. What we really want to look at is how do we leverage the expertise, the products and services that we have to continue to serve the customer in their journey for the future. And the good thing is Oracle's hugely invested in India. Not only do we have the second highest number of employees anywhere else in a country, anywhere else in the world, right? The first largest is the US, the second largest in terms of employee strength is India. We also have 2 data center regions, one in Mumbai, one in Hyderabad, on separate seismic zones. Absolutely. And what we bring to the table is very unique. No other cloud vendor has the entire scale of cloud services that Oracle brings to the table. Which is software as a service. We have the entire scale there, which spans ERP, enterprise performance management, human capital management, customer experience, and digital advertising. That is software as a service, right? Supply chain, everything else is included. Then we have infrastructure as a service. And then we have platform as a service, both of which have many services, sub-services associated with it. So these are all in what we call as the generation 2 data center regions, which is the cloud, Oracle Cloud OCI, right? And that is something that we have for the Indian customers, and it's localized. For example, the GST, etc. So with this vast scope, what we bring to the customer is the ability to run an integrated end-to-end set of cloud and digital services, which helps reduce complexity for the customer, helps improve their ability to respond, manage their employees, manage their internal operations, their supply chain, their finance, and move their most critical applications onto the cloud without compromise. We deliver very high levels of availability, right? And of course, security, which is paramount importance. So all of these put together makes a very compelling reason for our customers to look at Oracle and adopt Oracle Cloud Services. And we see that being adopted very, very rapidly in India, right? Across industries, be it financial services, be it IT, ITES, be it manufacturing. Many companies, national level names, have really deployed these cloud services and are getting the benefits of that deployment. So I think with the rapid adoption by industries, by the services companies, by the manufacturing companies, and by the government and the public sector, right? We will continue to support our customers and gain momentum along with them they move their journey to the digitally transformed world. Whether it's IoT, whether it is core banking, whether it's the insurance systems, we are working with customers to move them to the cloud.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, fantastic talking to you. But in the end, I would like to know from you some key milestones and landmarks that you envision between now and 2025 that industries should thrive to achieve, and how will digital technology, digital transformation help in achieving those milestones?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is an interesting question to kind of bring it all together, right? Personally, what I see is that companies, many industries have come to terms with the current environment. They know that somewhere down the line, a few months down the line, we will have enough vaccination to be able to start working the way we used to 1.5 years ago. And what they've done in the interim is either they've applied, deployed technologies, or they've looked deeply into their businesses to see how they can differentiate themselves, how they can be much more efficient and optimal in the way that they manufacture or deliver their products. So I think there has been a lot of introspection in the last year to 15 months about what is happening within their respective companies. And they're also, looking out and saying, hey, here is the opportunity. And this is how we will start executing as life and business comes back to normal. This is supported also, I think, by the efforts of the government and the various schemes that they've come out. Atmanirbhar India, that is Make in India, many of those other schemes that India has come out with, right? Bharat Pay, UPI, all of these things are really transforming the way people did things from the past. And many of the initiatives are, I think, going to help companies start prospering going forward. The geopolitical situation, the global geopolitical situation is also something that's widely talked about in many companies, particularly in the manufacturing and in the chemical sectors, are looking to take advantage, right? Startups, the funding continues to come in, the markets continue to have very good IPOs. So I think the next phase really will be about coming out of the shadow of the pandemic and really start racing to capture market share, grow their top lines, and improve their bottom lines, right? Along the way, they will also adopt technology. Like I said earlier, the propensity to try out new technology has changed dramatically in the Indian companies, right? And they will look at how it can support them. Probably about 1.5 years down the line, most of the companies would be back to what was their pre-pandemic this one. But with the current internal consumption, the pent-up demand that will come out of 1.5 years of staying at home and buying from home, and the opportunities globally, right? I think 1.5 years down the line, it will start really paying huge dividends for industries. It will, of course, be supported by technology adoption. That's becoming very, very prevalent. And after that, I think for the next few years, we will see not just a growth in internal consumption, as in within India, but also large opportunities that come up for our market, for our companies outside of India, right? And thankfully, during the pandemic, people have been able to spend the time thinking through on the quality of their business, the quality of their operations, their ability to go and invest, what are the markets to go after. And all of that together, I think, will start paying the dividends down the line, maybe 1.5, max 2 years down the line. So personally, I'm very bullish about where it's all heading. And I think it'll be a great time for India going forward.
No, absolutely. There's a reason to be bullish about it. Although, the obstacles are very natural, and any any brimming economy which has a target to reach, such as India, which has a target to reach to 5 trillion by 2024, needs to be working overtime to overcome these hurdles. And I'm sure technology will enable the industries to achieve the targets. Thank you very much for your time spent with us, Prasad. I really appreciate your time and inputs for this conversation.
It's a pleasure always talking to you, Rahul. You have a very good day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You.